Welcome back to the Harbor. I'm your host, the Kino Cowboy. I'm here with my boys, Scott Keith, Alex Fatherly. Today, we're returning to our Spielberg talk, this time, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the other sci-fi movie from 1977 that is quite different from, let's say, Star Wars. And I really wanted to talk about it because I feel like watching this movie post-COVID, post-Trump truther era is interesting.
Oh, and post the government confirming UFOs era. Let's
Yeah.
talk. I mean, because I know you're. I don't know about you, Alex, Adrian. I know you're pretty big into UFOs and conspiracy theories. I have a passing interest in all of them. Uh, I did want to ask why this movie and why now, other than we love Spielberg and why not?
Because this is my favorite depiction of first contact in a film ever.
Yeah,
And it's just the film as a whole, its structure and everything is just so kind of unorthodox, especially for the time.
it is unorthodox.
And
Yeah.
it's not like we as a kid, as I was getting into movies, of course I fixated on Spielberg, and so I got a copy of Close Encounters. And I would often just buy and buy stuff at Hastings that I thought I would like just because I had spending money at the time. So that was one of them. And I was like, well, I like, Raiders and all that other stuff. But I was like, okay, this has a giant UFO on the front. This is probably going to be like a, malevolent invasion kind of movie, but it's not actually. It's it the thing about Close Encounters is that it really rides the line tonally with it. It's to me it's the definition of the word awesome and like the
hmm
classic definition,
Of
like
being full of awe.
yeah, full of awe where it's fascinating, scary, but also kind of scary, like the biblical kind of definition of awesome.
There's
That's
some biblical angel sort of vibes going on.
yes,
Oh yeah.
I noticed that this time, and we'll get into that because this time listening to John Williams' score, I noticed he brings in the Dies Irae into it, especially towards the end, which is considered a classic, like medieval-esque March of Death kind of motif. But also, I was reading into that motif a little bit more, and I was seeing that, like, contextually, there were times where that motif was used as like a representation of the second coming of Christ. And so I feel like maybe John Williams was kind of making a parallel there. Might be overreaching, but like with the UFOs coming at the end feels like a huge deal and like an advancement of everything in humanity. It could be kind of like a ode to that kind of motif of second coming, but in
It
a
is. It's
completely
the
different
death
way.
of an old era
hmm
and the ushering in of a new one.
I definitely,
It could
yeah.
be unless they just kind of drop off their straight hitchhikers and just kind of leave. I don't know if they do much exchanging of technology. Although you obviously have Richard Dreyfuss going on signaling whatever that signals humanity's ascension next stage. What were you
Yeah.
about to say, Alex?
Just saying that in terms of like being just so like heavenly, I definitely see your points on that, Adrian. I mean, especially, I mean, you see it visually as well as in John Williams's music, and then on top of that, just the way things are paced. It feels like just thematically, it feels like a something that you would see maybe from the Bible or something like from Revelations,
Yeah.
just about things that are basically going to happen. Just like it's represented in a way.
Especially
Um,
the way they're like being called to this almost like holy place, and they have this idea beamed into their brain they're trying to understand, but it's just too far, too much eh, complex for their human monkey brains. So, but yeah, it's similar to like maybe how you would be trying to interpret God speaking to you or something like that. It's just like something you can't even understand. But it's just this tone, like I said, the awesomeness of it and how he can convey that classic sense of like Spielberg Americana with this whimsy while matching it with this uneasy undertone and even creepy kind of vibe at points.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite example of that is like when the kid's running down the street and he encounters that man, that real American looking guy with the flannel, and he's like whistling like an old tune, and like it has that split of like Spielberg Americana, but also unsettling what is going on paranormal.
And it's easiest for us to talk about Spielberg Americana. We have to remember this came out in 1977. This was really his second major film. He had made
Mm-hmm.
Duel and stuff, TV movies and stuff before that. But this was, pretty hot off the heels of Jaws,
Mm-hmm.
a year or two after. So even the idea of this being you didn't use the word subversion, and it's not, but of him playing with this idea of Americana. But in this movie, he's contrasting it with Richard Dreyfuss losing his mind, which is,
Yeah.
by the way, by far my favorite part of the movie. This
Mm-hmm.
this is gonna sound crazy. I'm way more interested in all the Richard Dreyfuss stuff than all the Close Encounter stuff. Frankly, all of the alien stuff is all secondary to Richard Dreyfuss as a character and his relationship with his family and
I
his own.
think it's equal to me, and
Yeah,
that's what I like is that the movie is about this suburban dad who feels like he's losing his mind and losing his family, but it's set up and contrasted with this gigantic scale by opening the film with like finding lost planes from the 40s in the middle of nowhere. And the way that imagery is presented, it gives me chills because there's such a weird mystery to it. And like this unexplained, like possible phenomenon could be, it's elusive, but like it feels like it could be real in a way. And
Yeah.
just that being the backdrop of a guy dealing with this, just a regular guy, is like so Spielberg, but it like, and the crazy part is that we have to remember contextually that back then, pre-Star Wars, because this came out the same years as Star Wars, when people thought of science fiction, they thought of cheesy 50s pulpy dopey stuff that you send your kids to with 10 cents to go see at the theater. So when Spielberg cemented the 70s, like the summer American blockbuster with Jaws, they're like, what are you going to follow this up with? He's like a UFO movie. They're like, uh-oh. Like, what do you mean a UFO movie? That's not good.
So I
Uh,
listen. He even had NASA apparently wrote a 20-page letter to him, basically saying you do not want to release this film. This is very like sensitive. And what was funny about that is that Spielberg was encouraged by that letter, that he was
Dude, I would
determined
be
to do
too.
it.
Yeah, that's part of the more insane part because and the government didn't really want it released. That's so cool to me, and I feel like he was
Mhm.
tapping into something subconsciously because of all the phenomenon that obviously he's been about over the years, but like it's the way governments handle sensitive information. I feel like it's a pretty interesting take on that with like, okay, how are we going to set this up to
yeah. It's also a different time when you couldn't just be like, fake news, do all that. I was wondering, just for my own amusement, toward the end of the film where they're trying to shut down that county in Wyoming, how would that go today? Would anybody listen? Would they all be live streaming the whole thing?
that's
Uh,
exactly what I thought.
did anybody care when that they said a train got derailed with chemicals? Didn't that happen in Ohio a few months ago? There's a big train derailment and
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. And it's become a problem now. Well, first of all, now there would be TikToks in 20 minutes saying, oh, this is all a ruse. The government's trying to silence us. This isn't really happening.
Mhm.
So people would be in a, yeah, we already have people denying that COVID was even real, even though a million people died in this country. So you'd have people already disillusioned. It'd be crazy. And I was thinking about that the whole time. Like, how would you do this now? Could you even do it? Because people would be live streaming. They'd be saying, "Oh, the moon's a hologram. This is all part of
you turn off the town's Wi-Fi and they all leave.
our."
They'd be more
People,
desperate,
people,
also probably.
people be on their phones.
I'm not saying it's a
People
phone
be on
bad.
their
No,
phone.
I'm just saying like, what would they do? I don't know. But
Angry.
Personally, I would say they'd be more desperate. They'd probably be more willing to, just really rise up against the government, trying to cover something up. That's just
Yeah.
me, though.
Wyoming has all those Second Amendment murders, right? It's pretty sparse up there.
well, I forgot to preface this with the fact that unlike most Spielberg movies, this movie has 3 cuts. And I was
Mhm.
wondering if you watched, which cut did you watch?
Pretty sure I've only seen theatrical.
Okay.
I've seen this movie twice. This is my second viewing.
What about you,
So,
Alex?
okay, so the way I first watched this film was it randomly came across it on TV, and my parents knew about this film, so then I later rented it from Hastings,
Yeah.
and I found out there were different versions of it. So I think the one that I think I'm more familiar with is either the collector's version or the director's cut of
Yeah,
it.
the director's cut is the collector's. The
Okay.
the special edition is the middle one. The special
Yeah,
edition one is the one you don't watch. Let me break it
right.
down real quick.
Break it down.
Um, both whether you watch the theatrical cut or the director's cut, the first and third, it's fine. Those are the cuts to watch. I prefer the director's cut because, well, let me first say or let me say the second cut he made was a mistake, and he knew it was a mistake because at the end he shows the inside of the mothership, and like he realized, no, that didn't need to be shown. That needs to remain a mystery. That was stupid of me to do. But he also added in some stuff that he tried to add in originally, but was shut down by the studio and because of budgetary this or that. And then they got to shoot a little bit of what they were wanting to shoot originally. But yeah, so a lot of people do not actually, I'd say pretty much everyone who loves this film, they don't like the special edition because it that you don't want to see the inside of the spaceship. It just ruins kind of the mysterious magic of it. But the director's cut, and this is very strange because Spielberg doesn't really have director's cuts of his movies. So that's real important to him. The director's cut adds several scenes, 2 of which I think make the film the best, the definitive cut. Um, One is just extra fluff. I won't say you have to have it in there, but it is a scene where they find these giant ships out in the sand
Hmm.
in the desert, where warships that shouldn't be out there, and that's really cool to me. And there's a really important scene in the middle of the film where Richard Dreyfuss's character, he is like having a complete meltdown and he's in the shower in his full clothes, freaking out. And his wife like comes in and like basically is like freaking out too, and she tries to console him and says like we all have to go to family therapy if you want this to work and stuff. And then the kid starts slamming the door because he can't understand what's going on. And then the daughter starts crying. It's a complete chaotic mess. And that scene really, I feel, is important to the film. Just like really bringing up like making it less just like dark humor and more like, okay, we actually have him like freaking out a bit.
Yeah, because it rides that line. What I was saying earlier, it doesn't. This is the first movie that I can recall. I guess you can argue there's some of the Spielberg Americana family suburban. You can argue there's a little about that with the Jaws and the just because it's a vacation town. We don't really see that though. That's not the focus. The focus is not on a family. It's on all these people trying to find the shark, right? Um, and that's where that contrast comes up. Here's American life, idyllic, an outside force disrupts it. Same thing here, only it's an actual and outside force and not a shark. In Spielberg's, typically benevolent depiction of aliens, which is different.
Which
Uh,
is interesting that when the film was being written or the script was being written, so there were several copies of it to where basically the main character was like a cop or an army soldier that gets a close encounter and then goes on an adventure. But Spielberg specifically wanted it to be an everyday blue collared person
Yeah.
just that experienced it. that's basically what we got.
No, he's an electrician. Now he did that to be
Right.
more relatable. I can't relate to that. This one guy can raise a family on his one salary, and his wife is saying, "I don't want to work." But
Now, but the funny thing about that is that the original draft was made by Paul Schrader, and Spielberg hated it and said it was one of the most embarrassing scripts he's ever read. It's like, what the hell? And like Paul Schrader can write a good screenplay. It's just not what Spielberg was looking for. Which
now I really want to read that.
I get it.
Mhm.
You know, it's two different styles.
Yeah, what sort of angsty Paul Schrader shit?
Yeah, we don't want to watch.
screenplay.
We don't want to watch Spielberg's version of Taxi Driver. That's just not.
I do. Most people don't.
But
it wouldn't be good.
Yeah.
Shout out Paul Schrader making Facebook posts about Roger Corman the day he died. Shitting on him.
Terrible.
So
what a bastard.
So funny. Just read the room, dude. It's such an asshole thing to do.
Yeah. Well, I also like the we also get like the C plot is the mom and her kid on the farmhouse. So, and obviously they collide and they go towards Devil's Tower together. But that was such an influential sequence on me. I want when the kid gets abducted because it's a PG movie, and I was a pretty sheltered kid. And watching this was like the closest I had seen to like a true like kind of horror sequence in like in a sci-fi kind of realm. And like I don't know, yeah, that's part of like we were talking about the religious aspect is like the ship comes up like a literal force of nature, like it's a thunderstorm. And you know, humans we can do so much, but we can't control the weather, tornadoes. It's like a force of nature. And when it starts showing up, it like gives me goosebumps. And like the shot where he opens the door, it's nothing but like orange. That freaked me out as a kid in a good way. I was like, this is what cinema is all about, man. Like such an easy image of like unnatural orange light blaring through the door, and that's all you can see. You don't have to see what's actually out there to terrify you.
No, it's better if you don't. How old were you when you saw this movie, Alex?
I would say probably I was close to maybe 12
That's about my
or
age, yeah.
yeah. And I later saw it. I was in eighth grade when I saw it again, or seventh and eighth grade, because it was actually on my birthday, and it was during a snowstorm.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'd rented the film, and just because I found out we were out of school, and said, "All right, I'm gonna get my rental film."
That's
the
a
reason
good
I
time.
asked,
Yeah.
that's a vibe. I first saw this movie. I was 22, something like that, and this is my first rewatch. You know, since that almost 8 years ago. So this is not one of my favorite Spielbergs. This is one of those weird. Adrian, you've heard me say this before. I just don't emotionally connect to it movies. I think there's a variety of reasons. You know what I think one of the big reasons is, and this is one of the reasons it took so long for me to watch this movie anyway. This movie got spoiled for me pretty much in its entirety by those I love the 70s, those VH1, all those comedians and stuff would come on and talk about pop culture from previous decades, which married two of my loves of pop culture and comedy, of course. So I kind of knew I've known since I was 12, even though I didn't see this movie until 10 years later or whatever, the exact almost beat by beat climax of this movie, which is why it took me so long. So I did not ever have like an early introduction sort of emotional attachment to this film. Which is weird because I've had on so many other Spielberg things and sci-fi things. The fact that I didn't see this movie until my 20s is pretty crazy. And it's also interesting because the more and more I think about it, because we've talked about Spielberg's career over here, and we're in a post-Fableman Spielberg world now, where we get to apply that knowledge to all of his other cinema, which he knew was going to happen, and I'm sure he made his peace with it. Because I'd read him talk about before how the end of this movie is Richard Dreyfuss, who's amazing in this, by the way, career-defining performance in a career of breakout performances. um, classics like What About Bob, things like that.
My dad
Uh,
loves that movie.
I like that movie. It's stupid. But Spielberg said he would never make a movie after being married and having kids with your favorite indie woman, Kate Capshaw, I guess, or whoever his first wife was. Like he would never make an ending where the dad just straight up leaves the planet and all of this. Like this almost seems like it was written by somebody. I mean, at this point, oh, he was probably about what 30 when this happened. Yeah, almost exactly. When this came out, and he this is just me reading into it, and also me reading into it because I'm about the same age and also single. Um, Anxieties about parenthood and domestic life, especially when your careers are taking off and you're obsessed with film, this thing that requires you to be away from home at months at a time, depending on the project, weird lifestyle. I don't know. It just kind of made me think of Richard Dreyfuss's obsession with building mountains in his mashed potatoes, um, as this sort of creative obsession or obsession that lots of people get over things that are not understood by the rest of their family or not understood by their life or some sort of emotional obsession. It could be any sort of obsession, an inner obsession, and that alienating your loved ones. And maybe this is a stretch. Maybe Spielberg was thinking about domestic life and he was thinking about his falling deeper into the Hollywood system and being in love with cinema so much and trying to figure out, how do I marry these two things? Or do I just say, screw it, not have a family and go off into space to evolve humanity with my movies?
It's interesting just the scene like that where he's just standing out. The neighbors are all looking at him. I mean, he's clearly they see that he's lost his mind, but he just stares out. He's just looking around like, who are these guys? You know,
Yeah,
what are they looking at?
yeah, that's part of a bigger problem. And that goes straight into the later mid-century American thing of like there was this real like, whoa, what would the neighbors think if we do anything that's out of the ordinary? Like kind of like
Sure, he plays with that, and
paranoia. Yeah.
that's what I was trying to say earlier. Is that there's this criticism, kind of a lazy criticism, if you ask me, that I've brought up time and time again on this. Every time we bring up Spielberg, because we spin Spielberg on this cast, um, is that he has this kind of neutered, boring Americana sort of approach to his storytelling, that's overly optimistic, that is thematically simplistic. Um, and this is only his second movie. He hasn't even established those tropes in his movies yet. And it's already being undercut by domestic distress, which we know was part of his life growing up. So I just think this is another movie that you can find evidence in the movie to refute whatever claims that Spielberg is. I think he's trying to emulate a certain American ideal that he grew up with as a boomer, but probably felt somewhat isolated from because he's Jewish. I even think that's part of it. At one point, one of the army colonels or whatever is talking about Wyoming and is trying to say, like, we need something that'll move out every good Christian in 300 kilometers or whatever he says.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, yeah, that's funny.
That's just,
Spielberg's
I like that line
yeah.
bit of a JOO,
Well, first of all, yeah, that makes me want to talk about his wife because
Poor woman. This movie, from her
Kinda.
perspective, is terrifying.
I don't know. I'm split on her because to me, if I know my partner very well, like very well, and I guess it depends on the mindset, but if Parker came home at 4 in the morning after being out for some work thing and she showed up half sunburned and like frantic and not able to fully explain what she saw, but that it's important that we need to go out there right now at 4 in the morning, I would believe that she saw something insane, something unbelievable, because that is like what other kind of scenario, like what is going on? Like what the hell happened to you? Why are you looking like this? And the only thing she's worried about is what the neighbors think. And I'm like, whoa, okay, like maybe you should worry more about what the hell, figure out what your partner saw. I don't know. And then like if they saw something unexplainable, like obviously they saw something to where it was that important to come and get you at 4 in the morning. I don't know. Why
Do you
be
think she was
obsessed
kind of
with that? Huh?
do you think she was kind of tame about it, maybe? About the whole thing at
No, I
first?
think she was just like, I don't know, she's unwilling to even have the idea of the thought of the possibility that there could be something paranormal or extraterrestrial or something. It could just be like even if it was like a government experiment or something logical. Like she can't even fathom believing him on any sort of front. Obviously, he was kind of like a dull, kind of average guy up until this
Mm.
point. Don't you think that there's something crazy that happened to make him suddenly act like this? It's not like it's onset schizophrenia or something, you know?
She probably didn't have the way to decide that. I mean, she probably wasn't reading. Maybe she was psychology books or talking about trauma on the internet, like it's trendy nowadays. She was. I think the main point, it wasn't so much that she didn't believe him or that something didn't happen. It's that you were taking this thing, whatever happened, and prioritizing it over your family and your
Mm.
children and the well-being of your children. I think that was the main thing.
I get
Yeah.
that.
I think she was worried about what the neighbors would think, but only in the sense of like, how does this affect my own family? Not even in the sense of like losing the respect of the neighbors. How will they treat us? How will they treat my kids? Will the other kids still want to play with my kids? That's what I was saying. From her perspective, this movie is terrifying. You know, the half sunburn thing is pretty crazy. And she does make that line, don't you think I'm taking this all rather well? Or whatever she says when she goes out in the middle of the night to the highway anyway. Um, and who knows what would have happened with their relationship if he had stayed on Earth, if they would have gotten back up. Because she never says, I'm divorcing you. She says, I'm going to my sister's house right now. I can't. You're acting crazy.
But then when he
Which,
calls her later, she like it's implied that she's staying much longer than he had anticipated. He's like,
yeah.
"What do you mean?
Mhm.
How long? Like, what do you mean? Yeah, or something like that."
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just like
He doesn't know. That's also Ingma from Young Frankenstein.
there's a point though in that scene in the director's cut where she's like saying like I hate you. Like that's such a crazy thing to jump to because it's only been like a
Mhm.
week. He hasn't started crafting his house into a devil's uh tower yet. And it's just like I feel like there was some underlying content there that maybe we didn't know about that she kind of jumps to and
Maybe she was fucking Seth Rogen.
what?
And that was the problem. That's Benny in the Fablemans. That's what I was saying.
Oh,
That
okay.
was a
Oh
Fablemans.
yeah, okay.
That was a bad
Oh.
Fablemans joke.
I forgot honestly that he
Okay.
was in that movie.
No, that's
Not
fine.
that,
You're asking
not
young.
really, but like I was like, but the I don't know. I just feel like it definitely does come from that angle of not being married with kids, but I feel like there's enough setup, at least in the director's cut, that they don't seem like that meant for each other. Not that he should abandon his family, but like I don't know. It's such a cosmic thing that has never been explored so like
Yeah.
grand. Like how do you blame him for wanting to go on that ship? I don't know.
Mhm. I mean, I could think of a couple of scenes like in the director's cut that like the scene where she's cutting out like the newspaper clippings of the UFOs and she's just looking at it then just looks at him strangely or the scene like right when they're at the spot and she's trying to talk to him and he's not listening in a way
Yeah.
and he's just not listening. And then the other scene I can think of is like right as he is pretty much, starting to make his model and he's just again she falls into that, okay, well, what are the neighbors gonna think? And I just look left and right and just decides, okay, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah. Well, once he starts throwing dirt and chicken wire into his kitchen, that's when it's like, okay, I get
Yeah,
this.
I understand why
Hmm.
she leaves at
I
that
get
point.
that totally.
Right.
I'm saying leading up to it, there are moments where like she should have been a little more understanding, trying to figure things out instead of saying like, "Oh, we need to go to family therapy, all of us." Like, I think this is a
Yeah.
little bit different from
Maybe they
that.
had something, I don't know, going on before, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
But also, I don't know, she didn't have conspiracy TikTok to scroll on and learn about this stuff.
neither did I growing up.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair. I was reading UFO books and stuff.
yeah, I read UFO books growing up. Yeah, but that's just the tragic part is that he does wake up after that fight and he starts to take stuff down and he's like, okay, I'm good. I'm okay. We're gonna be all right. He's gonna prioritize his kids, and as soon as he decides he's gonna prioritize his family, he tries to rip off the model that he made, and it turns it into the exact devil's tower, and that's he's like, never mind, I'm back. Here.
Snaps right into it.
So funny, and I
Mhm.
like that gag. There's some good gags in this, like when it's framed where like the TV is in front, and he's talking on the phone, and every time he turns to the TV, the devil's tower's not on the TV, but then when he's looking away, it's on the TV until he finally sees it, stuff like that.
Hmm.
And another great gag is the setup where he's driving the car and the car comes up behind him and he says, "Go on, move." And the car drives around him, and then another pair of lights come up behind him, and then it just rises up above him. It's so unnatural. It's silly, but it's also like eerie. It's a good like clash. I feel
Mhm.
like it's yeah, you
You
can
need that. You need the world before.
totally.
So I feel
The
like
build up.
a lot of these movies want to jump today, the way movies are paced, want to jump into the inciting incident so quick that we don't always have an idea of what the world was like before. Although I don't know, the everything's dragged out. This whole movie is the first contact. It's not like
Yeah.
this is the first movie that came in my head. Man of Steel, where half the way through the movie, Zod shows up, there's first contact, and then the rest is them fighting the aliens.
Mhm.
The contact is the whole movie.
Yeah.
So the world before is you're seeing it throughout that whole transition, and it's
And but he still like manages to shake things up. Like you have, like I said, it's crazy to me that the A plot is this all-American suburban guy, and then the B plot is, the government and like this
yeah,
whole force of
Francois
people.
Truffaut.
Yeah, let's
Mhm.
see, who are we gonna put as our lead guy for the, nations trying to discover what's going on with this? Oh, Francois Truffaut.
Yeah, dude.
Okay. And it's like I'm so glad that he was just down to front this movie. It's so funny. Like,
Apparently he did it like he wanted to do like a study for a book about acting. And he was so nervous apparently on doing this role.
yeah, because he's a director. It's funny
yeah.
because like you direct all these movies and now you're in the hot seat. Now you're no longer directing the acting. You're being directed. It's like, oh shit. Like
Right.
I bet that would be kind of scary.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he's a great. I like him especially because like. And I find it interesting that the A plot and the B plot don't even collide until towards the very end, where Truffaut is like has Dreyfuss in the room and they're interrogating him, and Truffaut's more interested in like the phenomenon that all these people have showed up to this area, and he doesn't even. I love the detail that he sees Dreyfuss escape out of there, and he kind of almost does this smile, like this look of like, "Yeah, I hope you make it up there, man. I'm not gonna tell anybody because I like what you're about." Kind of, it's just like one look. So commendable for a guy who's a director and not usually an actor. And
Mhm.
obviously Spielberg's direction is really good because like all of that can be conveyed from one shot of one guy, but it comes into play in the finale when like he says I envy you and all that because he doesn't even speak English that much, but when he does, it's very like important, I feel like, to his character.
I think
And
like one of my favorite lines that he says is just literally like the scene right after he sees Neary just going up the mountain. Just he says the line, "They belong here more than we do."
yeah, they were called here. He
Mhm.
understands, he gets it. He's
Yeah.
obviously because you get the contrast with the military guy who's like, "Whoa, what are we gonna do?" This and that or whatever. I love
Mhm.
that contrast, and I love that we really just follow them trying to figure out clues and how to communicate. And like I like when they go up and where was it? Was it in India? I'm not sure. But
It was
where,
like the Gobi Desert.
yeah, or no, that was the ships where they find all the ships.
Okay.
But I just love that sequence where they all are all
Yeah.
chanting the five uh notes, and then they ask where they heard that, and they all just point upwards. That gives me chills, dude. That is
Hmm.
like really good direction, like just impactful, like just the unknown. The unknown is so scary to me, but so fascinating, and especially in like a semi-realistic fashion of like first contact. And like I was talking about before, how it's a force of nature. It's just stuff we can't even understand. He plays with that when we get to the full farmhouse sequence where like the kids being abducted, and like it's playing out like a horror movie, but unlike any like the you don't know what's about to happen. And there's like, okay, she sees there's light coming into the chimney. Like, what is that? We don't know. We see almost like a POV of her trying to shut the light from the top of the chimney. We don't know what this light could possibly be do or what's the threat of the light, but we still want her to close it as fast as possible. And
Hmm.
then we get steam like coming out of their air vent. What could possibly be causing that? Why are the toys running around? We know it's not a spirit, but it's just like what could be, it's just beyond anything of comprehension. That's more scary to me than like ghosts or like
Hmm.
ghouls to me.
No, it's same philosophy used in Jaws. See the monster less. No, it's cosmic horror. Aliens are cosmic
Yeah.
horror. If you're gonna
Yeah.
do horror, and he definitely, I don't know why I didn't put this together. There's a similar scene, and straight from the book in War of the Worlds, which I haven't seen since freaking theaters, by the way.
I rewatched it a year or two ago.
And I mean, well, you can definitely see the line between that scene and the much more sinister scenes trapped in houses and in basements with
Yeah.
aliens going on
Hmm.
in War of the
That
Worlds.
War of the Worlds, his War of the Worlds is one of the scariest PG-13 movies probably of all time.
Yeah,
Like that
Yeah.
movie really brings on the scary like dread of like alien invasion.
it's
Hmm.
pretty good. I
It's
saw it for
really
Yeah.
my
impressive.
birthday when it came out. I
I
remember.
still think like I know this is like one of the oldest online arguments, but it does kind of like just dwindle out like anticlimactic. Oh, the aliens couldn't survive on Earth. Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
it.
and it's not explained well in the movie either. Because I remember I had read the book as a kid, and because I was a kid reading H.G. Wells, because I'm me, and then like went and saw that with my family and like took a couple friends. I had to explain the colonialism metaphor of like microbes and stuff to
Yeah.
them, which I
Yeah.
guess at the time was a very novel ending. Now it's just kind of like, but I mean, I don't know. It'd be kind of boring if in this movie the aliens walked out of the ship. They're like, hold on. I got to scrub first. Hold on. And they're like,
Yeah.
I don't know. They're like doctors, just like
Yeah.
before surgery, just like rubbing themselves all over with. It's like that's not cinematic.
Or like the
Yeah.
scene from Mars Attacks, where everything's so peaceful and then the bird flies and then they go crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Except this movie's good. Uh,
Yeah. There's also I don't know if it was meant to be a gag or if it was just like a detail, but I do find it funny. Like he's destroyed his life in his home trying to build 3D models of this, and the lady with the kid, she's just been drawing it on paper like a normal, rational person. It's like,
that's pretty funny. Also, like, what ground do you think you're breaking? Because all you're doing is lumping mashed potatoes together. You're like this shape. It's like that's a very vague shape. That's not like a
yeah,
map. Like if they were sending you like details of a map and you were having to draw it down, it'd be like, oh yeah, get this details. If you're just vaguely making mounds out of stuff,
well, just
I don't know.
imagine if an image was beamed into your brain by aliens, and that's not something we've ever dealt with. How would you conceptualize it? So I guess it manifests in different ways, but it's like, man, how much he could have avoided if he was just an artist.
Yeah, but it's more cinematic.
Yeah, I know.
The
It's just really funny.
he's a blue collar guy. He's got to get his hands dirty.
It's just like I love the scene like Adrian where when you
Uh-oh.
mentioned uh-oh.
Keep going.
Okay, yeah, just scene where he pulls it off, and then it just a light bulb just goes off in his head, going, "Got it! I
Yeah.
got it!
It's like
That's it."
so simple. Yeah.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
like
Were the
the
aliens' beams not high def enough to make him realize that it was a mesa, that it was a flat top?
yeah. Yeah, they're streaming in 240p. Like,
Yeah, no, those interstellar distances, they don't got net neutrality and zeta reticulum. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I also like the scene where they have the press conference and he's in there and it's like the guy's like, look at this picture of this UFO, and everyone's like, oh, I see that. That's just like the one I saw. He's like, this was a dinner plate thrown by my children I took a photo of. And it's just like so exemplary of like government cover up annoyances for the last when that movie was out for 30 years. And like you just anyone can that's the crazy part is that anyone can go back and read of the news clippings the day of the Roswell incident and stuff and how different it was just a few days later. And it's like they were just trying to figure out how to like change things up about it being a weather balloon, but like they hadn't figured out how to cover their tracks as well yet. And it's like you can go back and look, and it's like so annoying that obviously something's going on, and he's just like, "Oh, I'm just gonna use this as an example to gaslight you." Like, it's so funny to me though. And then,
yeah,
of course, what ruins it is that hillbilly who's like, "Oh, I've seen Bigfoot," and that, of course, deflates the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like that's a
hillbilly.
really well thought out scene, and it's
Hmm.
one of the few movies that has like the full Spielberg written by credit. Like he had people write drafts, but like he took it on himself. And
Yeah,
apparently, he like kept watching movies at night when he wasn't working on the film, and would get more inspiration, and then would lengthen the production because he'd come up with new scenes and stuff. And it's like, damn, that's such like a filmmaker's brain, dude.
yeah.
But
Well, that's what you would do. It'd be annoying, and he doesn't have a wife or kids to go home to, so he can just
Right.
okay. Here, how about this? What if Richard Dreyfuss makes it, but in mashed potatoes this time? Um,
yeah,
just watching Julia Childs all night. It's like I have inspiration.
yeah.
You
How do
guys
you
know
feel?
Richard Dreyfuss, like, that Spielberg didn't originally want Richard Dreyfuss because he saw too much of the Matt Hooper character in Jaws.
Oh,
And basically, Richard Dreyfuss made it his mission to make sure that he becomes the lead member, like, or the lead cast member. The lead, he would get the leading guy role. And I mean, like, Steve McQueen, I think, was thought out.
oh,
And
okay.
yeah, so was Gene Hackman. So was Al
I could
Pacino.
see Gene Hackman.
I could see
Yeah.
Gene Hackman for sure.
Yeah. So it was kind of one of those that Dreyfus kind of cemented himself into that role and made it his mission basically to
And
get
I mean,
it.
I definitely I could see Hackman. I could really, in theory, I could see any of those people.
Yeah.
But Richard Dreyfuss does it very well in that he plays the role very straight, and when his character is having an episode, so to speak. But
Hmm.
then he's almost like an Alzheimer's patient. He has these moments of clarity where he looks around at his family around him, and then his acting gear switches, and he's able to go between those two modes so quickly. I think
Oh,
largely because he's committing to the truth of the character. He's not like he's doing kooky stuff, but it's not for laughs. Even a comedic character, I heard Bryan Cranston explain, like even a comedic character, like you're not trying to get laughs. You're trying to be like just that character needs to take whatever is happening seriously.
yeah,
And he
totally.
does that very well.
He even acts like a child at some
Yeah,
like
he's
a couple
regressing.
times. Right. Right. I mean,
Totally.
just the scenes like in the director's cut, just where they're talking about, hey, you know what's in town? Pinocchio. What, you guys want to go see Pinocchio? And just other like little things, like he's got a Star Trek model, like you hear "When You Wish Upon a Star." I mean, he's got so many things, like you said, that he's regressing. That
It's a
you
good
know.
point because it
Mhm.
does that director's cut does have that extended opening of him playing with his kids and it shows a lot more of his stuff that he's interested in, which is kind of childlike. That's a good point. And you do get several shots of that Pinocchio thing in the theatrical cut too, but it's not as like
Mhm.
prominent, I guess. I don't know.
Even John Williams like had notes of "When You Wish Upon a Star" like near the end. So I think
Makes
even
sense.
Spielberg had that song in his head, I think, while making the film too. So I guess that it's what sort of helped directed him of making this film.
That's interesting,
Hmm.
especially because like back when he was a kid, that was probably one of the movies you'd go to see in the theater. It probably impacted him pretty heavily, especially a lot of it because they would re-show like Seven Dwarfs and those older Dumbo and those older Disney movies a lot in the theater back then when he was probably a kid. But yeah. And I wonder how much of his like dad, I think about his dad, especially in the Fablemans, like the call that he's fired, he doesn't even know why. They don't even want to talk to him. Like the stress of knowing your dad's been fired. And I don't know, maybe I wonder if his dad was ever fired or not, if that has
Or
anything to
his
do
dad
with
was just always that good.
Yeah.
Wow, that's how he seems in the Fablemans.
it. Yeah, I know.
It's so weird to talk about Spielberg in a post Fablemans world.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Can we also talk about how really well like he really directed the kid? Like he really well directed the kid. It was like one of his first early attempts of directing kids.
That's true.
and a young kid, which is Jesus. Ugh.
He was three apparently.
There's three. Was it triplets or something?
No, he was three. Yeah,
Oh,
he was
kid.
three.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a 3-year-old kid, and
Yeah.
he was a natural actor or as Spielberg, I guess, said. He
Well,
was
I know that's why at one point the kid goes toys, and he calls the spaceship toys. That's because to get him to smile and stuff, they literally were showing toys and playing with them off camera
right.
to get reactions from the stupid kid.
That sounds so crazy, but like getting a 30-year-old child to even act on camera at all to me is a feat. Like that's insane.
It is. There's a great video you should guys watch after of David Lynch trying to direct children. He does not know how to do it. He
Yeah.
keeps telling them to scream like it's a rock and roll concert. I'm like, I don't think they know what a rock and roll concert is. I don't think they were going to see Hendrix in the 60s, man. Or 70s.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
I need to look at that because like
it's on Twin Peaks season 3.
Yeah, with Sonny Jim, I assume. Well, he's already so far out with some of his directions. Like, he's telling Cheryl Lee when she's Laura Palmer, like, okay, I want you to. He'll put his fingers up and pretend you're like you just woke from a dream, and he sounds like so like spiritual when he's directing. It's so funny, but he's like, it's not like the Wook crystals kind of spiritual, just a different kind of like
actually read some books, drank way too much coffee.
Yeah. But yeah, Spielberg, yeah, that's a good point. Is like that even early on, he could direct little kids like I don't know, it's crazy. And I do want to say like this isn't his second film, it's his fourth because he made Duel and then Sugarland Express, then Jaws, then this. So this is really though like where Spielbergisms really started to cement themselves hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also there's like this kind of 70s Cold War paranoia going on, especially towards the end, it feels like, especially when they're like he's taking off his thing so he can breathe and he's like, it's not, the air's fine, and then they're going up the hill and stuff and they're being attacked by those helicopters. It's just like it's pretty cool, man.
No, there's all that conspiratorial thinking, we're in the post 70s, so we're definitely post, I don't know, way post trusting the government, way post Vietnam protest, and way post what's his name, Kennedy, that guy who got shot.
Well, that's only
so we're way past that sort of innocent.
That's still fresh. I mean, that's like 5 years since Vietnam ended, so
yeah,
that's like
no, but I'm saying with political environment, there's a lot of government distrust.
Post Watergate,
CIA with LSD, this is post Watergate. I mean, so even though Spielberg's an optimistic guy, this still has its roots firmly in that era.
Yeah,
and is better for it for the country.
It's really that part where they're heading up the mountain while dealing with government agent stuff. That's probably the most 70s feeling part of the whole movie to me because of that just like vibe. Like 3 days of Condor kind of stuff, But
Of what? Them just being able to walk up the mountain?
no, I'm saying like dealing with government conspiracies, running from government agents, being hunted down for going against their conspiracy stuff, just
Yeah,
stuff like
Carl
that.
Weathers threatens them. Carl Weathers shows
Yeah.
Oh, really? That was Carl Weathers?
Yeah.
he was at the checkpoint. He's like, we were told to shoot looters.
I
Like, he
didn't
wouldn't
even
be a
notice
looter.
that.
He basically says that. Yeah, it's Carl Weathers, baby.
Yeah. Lance Hendrickson was also briefly in it also.
Oh,
He
yeah?
played one of the technicians
Oh,
uh,
okay.
near the very end. I think you see him briefly in one shot.
They must have been shot around the same time, but I guess. But Rocky was the year before this, so Carl Weathers just has a bit part in the Spielberg movie and is already a major star after this.
Yeah.
That's kind of the same way with Apocalypse Now with Harrison Ford. He's
Mhm.
just like in it briefly, and it's like, whoa, that's Harrison Ford in the 70s. But like,
Yeah, it's a lot. But I think
Yeah.
this was after Rocky came out, so then it's
Yeah.
like, oh, this is fucking Apollo Creed.
yeah.
The alien sides, of course, he's the best.
But it's just like that's the standout thing is like the thrilling climax of this movie is just watching people communicate with extraterrestrials through mathematical music.
Dude, does anybody know what they're saying, or are
They're-
they just making sounds?
They're
My thought,
figure out an algorithm, basically a mathematical algorithm that they're going to study later, but they're starting to figure it out as they're doing it.
my thought was on the five tones. Was that it may be hello, because hello is spelled out HELLO.
Oh yeah.
So it's five. I don't know. It's just something that my brain thought
Yeah,
at
it
one
could be
point.
that simple. I think
Yeah.
that would probably be like a thing
Yeah.
he would
If they
want to do.
if they made I bet somebody has put this together. I might Google this in a bit and be the Jamie for a bit. But I mean, yeah, you could do that. You could assign tones to every one of the 26 letters. I don't know. Seems more mystical in that. And I know I'm just recommending people go out and watch other videos after this. There's a great video of James Lipton on Inside the Actor Studio putting together in front of Spielberg as he realizes it himself.
Oh yeah.
It's really a beautiful video of him being like, your mother was a composer or a musician, and your father was a computer scientist, yet they were still able to get along. And how do the aliens in Close Encounters communicate? And he was like, it's a terrific question. Like Spielberg himself realizes that. He's like, oh, they're communicating with computers and music. God damn it.
That's beautiful. That's
all
really
there.
is.
It's all there.
Wow.
The truth you don't even realize when you.
Yeah, it makes me hate
on
that my
screen.
parents are still together. Otherwise, I'd be a good artist now. I know, but now I'm just here.
Man, shut up. That's
Nerd.
good. You're a good artist. But that's when I look back at like some of my more formative stuff, like videos I made like in high school and stuff. I see things that I didn't realize at the time what I was trying to represent from my brain, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I subconsciously put this in a video, and just like, so that's a wonderful thing to come across, like, yeah, I don't know, it reminds me of, in a way, of Angelo Badalamenti breaking down some of the Laura Palmer's character for Lynch with just the way he composed music in a way, like he kind of like brought that character forward, just because I don't know the way he composed it. But anyway, but that's like such an unconventional finale. Like you're making a blockbuster film, and like back when blockbuster films were new, and you make the climax of your film just this very like incredible communication between two civilizations, and that's really all it is. And they're not like this, there's nuance because they're not this evil trying to take over the world alien force, but they did, take some of our people for whatever scientific reasons that we don't even understand, that could be, seen one way or another. It's too much for us to really comprehend, whether I don't know when it comes to ethics of that, but it's just like it's almost like seeing the dead come back to life when they exit the
Mhm.
the spaceship and just come back looking untouched from like 30 years ago. And it's just its own thrilling climax in its own way if
It
you're
kind of
not
just
a meathead jock.
It's a little boring.
Oh, okay.
I don't feel the awe when I'm sitting in my desk chair watching my computer screen.
I sure do. I
On
think it's one of the most
LED theaters.
awe-inspiring sequences in cinema history.
I think part of it's because I'm depressed, but also I don't know, man. I've seen this movie twice. It's weird. It's one of those movies. I'm like, I want to like this movie more than I do.
That's fine. You
I'm
don't
yeah,
have
finding
to.
yeah.
I'm finding trouble caring.
What about the advancement of society and
Yeah, but
the awe
advancement to
of the
what?
universe?
But advancement to what?
Who knows? I mean, that's the fun part is like thinking about what
New
could be out there.
new porn delivery systems.
Oh yeah, okay. Well,
That's what
that
all new
sucks that
technology is.
you don't get that much out of it. That sucks, but it is what it is.
I'll
I'm
definitely.
also just dead inside.
I'd say, just for me, Close Encounters is one of those films that the build up is there. It's one giant build up to a payoff that not only delivers like a beautiful ending or a beautiful finale, but just so much goes in that you could tell that Spielberg was really putting his all into this film. Like, even, with the studio interference and him having to release director's cut later on. I mean, you could tell that this was a film he wanted to make, like genuinely wanted to make. And just he put his heart and soul into it. Uh just all that happens. I mean, like you said, whether it's the scenes with the families, or whether it's just all the scenes that are building up with the government of them actually, trying to decode what they are trying to tell them, to a point where they're starting to communicate with each other. I mean, again, it's one of those, it flows from beginning to end and has just a beautiful ending that, to me, establishes that yes, we've done things that are startling, but we still come in peace. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a beautiful ending. I
And
mean,
it's like the will of man and the way that Dreyfuss's character, he's just at the end of the day, he just wants to understand what he's been seeing in his head. He just wants to
mhm,
understand. And it's this very beautiful portrait of humanity at the end of just like humans just doing, it's just we're just doing whatever we can to just understand. And
mhm.
um it's not like this cynical kind of like, oh, how can we use this to our advantage? We're just simply just trying to make contact. And I don't know. It's just so different from a lot of other movies. I like it better than like, I don't know, Arrival. Arrival's a good movie, but this is just like my kind of a little
Mhm.
more abstract with what it's trying to do with its finale. I
Yeah,
feel like.
Arrival's just linguistics. I don't know. Arrival gets pretty abstract.
It's
Yeah,
yeah.
storytelling wise, but I'm saying just like this is more of like feelings from the heart at the
Hmm.
end.
Oh, it is. No,
Yeah.
Arrival, because I'm a big fan of the original author, Ted Chiang. Yeah, he's a very conceptual writer. He's not a super emotional writer. He's
Yeah.
not Spielberg.
Yeah,
Yeah. You maybe The Abyss is another film I can think of that's a little like Close Encounters, but
I still haven't
underwater.
seen The Abyss
You've
actually.
never seen The Abyss?
That's like one of the few James Camerons I haven't seen.
Yeah, I've got it on 4K. I was lucky to get it on 4K. It's one of those films you need to at least watch it one
Oh,
time. I mean,
I had planned on it. It's on my
yeah,
list.
It's on my
yeah,
list too because it's one of those I've seen bits and parts on cable over the years. So
I've
I've
never
seen
seen
the
one
movie,
scene
just
from it.
not in order.
yeah. Just compared to Close Encounters, I feel Close Encounters did a better job of establishing the tone of the film. Basically, it had a little bit of a better build up for me anyway. But I mean, James Cameron he's a great director that he knows how to take his own style when it comes to making films, and The Abyss is one of them. I mean, you could tell that he's so much of his vision is in that film. But yeah, I mean, Close Encounters, yeah, it's definitely one of those films that's like it's such a vision of like humanity.
Yeah,
Just
really.
yeah,
Totally.
it's a good portrait of humanity.
Yep, I agree. Now,
Good Cold War metaphor on how we should all work together and sing songs and leave our families and go be gay out in the cosmos together.
well, you heard it here first, folks. Uh, I think that about wraps up our discussion on Close Encounters of the Third Kind. We're not talking about the Fourth Kind, that terrible movie from like 2009
That's a
that
weird title.
some contrarians on the internet will try to defend. But well, they couldn't call it Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind, so they just called it the Fourth
Why
Kind.
not?
Why not? Because they'd probably get sued.
But Close Encounter, that's a real Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a real term. You know,
I know
this.
it is.
Yeah.
I don't want to associate it with Spielberg's movie.
They don't call it the Fourth Kind.
Well, they partially wanted to associate it, but you know, that movie sucks.
Why would you be afraid of Spielberg's lawyers?
They stole all the
What could they
fucking
possibly do?
owl stuff from Twin Peaks anyway. Anyway,
Guardians of Gahul.
ugh,
All
we're
right,
not talking about that
I'm gonna
movie.
shut up now. We need to end this podcast.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Next week we're doing Goodfellas, and then after that we'll be doing some summer series stuff. So look forward to that. We'll see you next week. If you want to check out anything else, I have a book for sale. You can find that in the description below. We have a tie-in film. If you live in Arkansas, you can see Scott do comedy.
Yeah, no, none of you. I had a great show Saturday, and none of you came out. So thanks, guys. Thanks, assholes. At Scott K Comedy on Instagram if you want to not buy tickets. We'll appreciate it. We'll
Alex,
appreciate
what do you got going on, Alex?
it.
So I typically will stream Donkey Kong. So you can find me at twitch.tv.com/fatherly streams. You can also check out the Vortex Arcade in Sherwood, Arkansas. Basically, we're a big retro arcade, $10 a person. Everything's on free play.
It's
Yeah.
pretty dope.
It's pretty badass. So
we need to go there again. I've been meaning to go there. I've been trying to get.
I go there at least once a month.
Oh, you
yeah.
do?
Yeah, we go all the time. Yeah, I have a fiance, you know.
Yeah, I know, but like,
go
what
for
are
dates?
I'm better at video games than she is, though.
No, always happy to have you guys.
She's starting to beat me.
Yeah.
At
Alex Fatherly is one of the greatest Donkey Kong players in the history of the sport. I just want to put that out there for any Donkey Kong.
they should have made King of Kong about Alex.
Yeah,
I
I genuinely love that movie, and I think you do not have to be the slightest bit interested in arcade games or games of any kind to watch that movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's the perfect metaphor for life.
Yeah, thanks for
What's
listening.
a better
everybody.
metaphor for life than Donkey Kong? Eh?
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.